We are very happy to be doing this event, and I'll say a little bit about Orinam, which is a non-profit, unregistered collective of people from the LGBTIQA community in Chennai and elsewhere in Tamil Nadu. We've been around since 2003, and our work includes advocacy, archiving queer and trans resources, cultural programming, and we are really happy to partner with Prajnya on these initiatives. So today we'll be talking about the violence of heteronormativity. Typically, when we're discussing family violence or domestic violence, we think of a lot of very overt forms of violence. But now, today, what we thought we would do is just speak about the expectations, rules, and conventions associated with the expectations associated with marriage, with childbearing, with gender roles, with patriarchy, etc., that can themselves impose violence on those of us who are not cis or not straight. So I'm very happy to welcome the panelists. Now I would like to request Deepthi to share some of her thoughts. Deepthi has been a long-time volunteer of Orinam for nearly 11 years now. She's also a founder of a queer assigned female at birth support group, AFAB group called Chennai Queer Cafe. She's also been curating a popular podcast series with Kaushik from Bangalore. So Deepthi, could you tell us a little bit about your context as a peer supporter, as someone who's intervened in many crises involving queer women and trans masked people, and how heteronormativity is played out in your life and the lives of people who you've interacted with as part of your work with Orinam and CQC. Go ahead, Deepthi. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I'll get right to the point. So, the first time I've heard of heteronormativity, I heard it a while. I didn't start reading about it till I heard about compulsory heterosexuality in this video by a YouTuber called ContraPoint. So, which kind of led me to a document on Reddit, which was called "Am I a Lesbian?" which is literally like a questionnaire and of sorts. It's very easy. It's definitely helpful for people who are questioning, especially AFAB women who are questioning their sexuality. But by then, I kind of knew that I was queer. But then it points out in so many different ways as to how, in million ways, we were taught that the only relationship that is valid is a heterosexual relationship. So it's kind of what Adrienne Rich also talks about in her paper about compulsory heterosexuality, and which is very, again, similar to heteronormativity and stuff. So Ramki, as you mentioned, I've been volunteering with Orinam and the queer spaces in Chennai since 2011. And as a peer counselor, I have seen both emotional violence, domestic violence, physical violence, and I've worked in crisis intervention and helped with legal support and offering shelter and stuff. And in all these years, I've started recognizing heteronormativity, how it's there in every minute of queer lives, whether it's the cliche of cis men saying, oh, you didn't meet the right man, or when it's a trans masculine AFAB person being harassed at work because they don't conform to the gender expression that is expected from somebody who's AFAB. So, and AFAB, like you explained, is the term I'm going to use a lot, which is assigned female at birth. So I feel for a lot of AFAB people, it starts from childhood where their gender expression is policed. Whether it's my mother saying, don't, you're not sitting properly, sit like a girl, or whether it's not letting AFAB people cut their hair if they want to, don't cut it short, who will marry you, or even as simple as some as an AFAB person would walk. So I think it gets worse as we grow up. Like when you are like at the marriageable age, for some of us it starts at 21, where I think a lot of us do still have the privilege to push it till we're like 30s, but then it does get very intense. Like personally, I've had a lot of emotional blackmailing and stuff. And it's not just emotional blackmailing, of course. It also can become corrective rape or marital rape when you're pushed into. And in only situations like that, I've seen some of the couples who are forced into marriages and then, face the horrible situation of marital rape, and then they kind of feel that, they can't take it anymore, and then they choose to abandon their natal family, and then they look for community support and then form chosen families. And I have a couple of people who are like I mean, they still want the kind of validation from their families to accept them and stuff, but they do have a certain chosen family and they're happy with them. And then, of course, a little bit of light on corrective rape is when cis male rapes an AFAB person with an intention to cure them of their sexuality. And of course, a lot of this goes unreported. And uh, even if things like this are taken to the law enforcement, I don't think they're always helpful, because I've seen uh, people take a moral high ground and say, oh, why are you running after, this was told to a trans masculine person, where they were said, oh, why are you running after a girl? We'll find a nice boy for you to get married to. Or there was a situation where a trans masculine person was slapped in a police station, and they were told that 377 does not apply. By then, actually, 377 was read down. So, and they were told this does not apply in our states. It's a central government thing. It does not apply in our state. So, I mean, they at that point they hadn't still contacted the community, but then these were all told later. So it's just, I mean, going to the state and the law enforcement, although we have the law in place, is not always helpful. And personally, I've gone through a lot of marriage pressure when I was, I think, 25, 26, and the community in Chennai has been a huge support. And as you mentioned, Ramki, this marriage pressure and the support that I received from the community has been a huge motivation for me to create the safe space that I've created in Chennai, Chennai Queer Cafe. Basically, the idea was to fight heteronormity, of course, and normalize queer conversations, queer existence, and a safe space to have discussions, whether it's the happy things or the tough parts. And as a peer counselor, I still get asked questions like, if there is somebody who is facing the marriage pressure and is taking the steps to run away from their natal family, they would be in the planning part, and I would listen to them. I would tell them, this is something that you can do, this is something that you need to be prepared. And at the end of it, they would be like, how long do you think, when do you think it'll get better? When do you think my parents will come around? Of course, I've seen it go, like, there were situations where in like 6 7 months things will get better, parents will be accepting, parents will be willing to listen. But then there are also people, after 2 years, they still get calls from parents saying, you've stolen money when you ran away from home, accusing them of stealing money from home. But over the years, I definitely agree, compared to, I think, past compared to like about a decade back, things have gotten better. And somewhere I think it's social media that is normalizing, whether it's gender expression or normalizing the fact that same-sex relationships do exist. And something that I've noticed in TikTok, although it is banned now, but then that has brought out a lot of, that has actually cut a huge class barrier, which in a way I feel uh, clears the fact that queer identities or a lesbian identity is not just a Western import. So that, I mean, even in that place there is a lot of hatred when it comes to comments and everything, but then on somewhere there is the acceptance also. And yeah, so coming to my personal experience, I would say I was not like a very feminine kid growing up. I would like play cricket on the road, climb walls, not sit properly. So my mom was a single parent. She was never very happy with all this. So when I grew up around 23, 24, after my graduation, the marriage pressure started. I mean, I obviously didn't know the language back then, but then I knew for sure I didn't want to get married to a guy. So, and I was not very sure if I can come out to my mom. thing also was that I didn't know any language. I didn't know the thing about coming out. But then it was there was no visibility, of course. So obviously, I know this is not something that is normal. So I never really wanted to talk about it. But then they kept pushing on and off. I said I wanted to study, and then I studied, and then they still kept pushing. Finally, I think there was a point where I came out to my cousin, my younger cousin, and then slowly, after a lot of thinking and understanding, I came out to my mom's sister. So initially she was a little unsure and everything, but then finally she came around. But then I don't know where again uh, can one say that they are completely accepting of my sexuality, because they still don't uh, they never, of course, initiate the conversation about this. And even if I somewhere start like things like, oh, I'm going to be a part of this workshop, it's about peer counseling, around queer people, they're like, oh, okay. They're not very open to taking the conversation ahead. So I don't know when I can say they're completely accepting of me. But then there are other uh, cousins in my family who are very accepting, who are friends with my partner, and that's like a welcoming side that I'm very happy about. But then of course, when I chose not to, at a point where I chose not to come out to my mom, uh, I could see the shame that she had in having a daughter who was 30 plus and unmarried. And recently my mom passed away, and a few years before that is when I kind of took a stand, saying that I'm not going to come out to my mom. It's fine, because if I saw it as a place where if I do come out, she's going to have this huge journey that she has to take, which is going to be very hard on her. So I chose not to come out. And that shame that she had in having a daughter who's 30 plus and not married, I see that in my relatives now. I mean, I'm not very close to my family as such, but I still see that shame, that emotional burden that they carry. And it's i, I don't know the way around with my family. But then on a on a general level, when I go for peer counseling or some stuff like that, I think one thing I would tell everybody is that you know there is support out there, there is social spaces, there is safe spaces out there. You just have to reach out. It will take time for you to be accepting of yourself and find people who are accepting, or even parents do come around. I've seen a lot of my friends come out to their parents, and a year, 2.5 years later, they are accepting of their sexuality and their partner. So, but then of course we need a lot of change in terms of whether it's workplace, or whether it's movie writer rooms, or mental health spaces, or healthcare spaces. We definitely need a lot more conversations about queer lives, or heteronormativity and stuff.
Thank you very much, Deepthi, for sharing your insights from your life as well as from your activism.